The inspiration for this video came from an American viewer who's interested in moving to Finland. I was thinking about giving her a bit of advice about how I would look at a move to Finland, and I thought, instead of writing it, why don't I just make a video so if anyone else has the same interest, it's here for everyone to see. The topics I want to cover for this video are 1. Immigration, 2. Finding a place to live, 3. Finding work, 4. Finding a community, 5. Cost of living, and 6. Planning a visit. Starting with immigration. This could be a huge topic, and I'm no immigration expert by any means. And there are lots of different ways you can move to Finland. And so I think the best thing to do is to check the official government website, which is migri, migri.fi, and have a look under the Moving to Finland and seeing what kind of visa you could potentially apply for. One good thing about the Migri website is that they have an English drop-down, so you can switch it to English and get everything in English. A lot of times, Finnish services are only offered in Finnish and Swedish, and so you can change it. You can have Google automatically translate the web pages, but sometimes you'll find that the translations aren't completely accurate and you can get really confused. The other thing too is it's a completely online process. And once you've logged in and created your account and sent in your application, you can actually just go online and check the progress. In the case of my application, after I had done it, it said that it was processing for about 2 months, and I kept wondering how long is it going to take if it's still being processed. But when it came time for them to make a decision, it was actually done in less than a day. In fact, I just logged in one day and I saw that my application had been approved. And literally I had checked the day before. So within a couple hours, it was done. Okay, so the next step in your move to Finland, I recommend, is finding a place to live. And I don't mean actually finding an actual apartment to live. I just mean trying to decide where in general you would like to live. And for this, I think there are kind of like 2 options. Basically, there is an urban environment and a rural environment. Because Finland has such a small population, even in an urban environment, you're actually not that far from nature. So I would recommend, at least in the beginning, starting in an urban environment because your opportunities to find work will be much greater than in a rural environment. In terms of urban environment, I would recommend the largest cities. There's kind of what I would say large by Finnish standards, and there's sort of medium-sized cities and small cities. I live in a small city, and I would not recommend someone start in such a small place. So in terms of what I'll say, the major cities, number 1, I would recommend that you start with the capital area. That's Helsinki, Espoo, and Vantaa. Next, I would say consider Tampere, Turku, and Oulu. To me, this is where someone, unless you're being moved for work, so you kind of already have a place to go, but if you're just kind of starting off with green skies, or I should say blue skies, I would choose one of these areas. And once you are working there or living there, you can move to the outskirts and you can have a very rural environment quite easily if that's something you prefer. When you're checking out the city that you want to live in, all of them will have a visit city page. So, well, something like that. Like there'll be a visit Turku, visit Tampere. I think Helsinki is called My Helsinki, but you know, if you type visit whatever city, have a look through what activities they show as things that there are to do, cultural, outdoor, sports. You'll get a good idea of what the options are and see which one which one you gravitate towards more. I think that's really important. So again, at this stage, we have done the immigration to just have an idea of what kind of visa you think you'd be eligible for. Then you are picking a city, going through and trying to decide what city you think you'd like to live in. And then step 3 is looking for a job. Now, even with these 3 steps, I'm not saying that you should submit your visa application yet. I think you probably want to go through at least this third step of looking for a job before you think about whether or not you even want to start the process. So with the job search process, I would say you want to, now that you've kind of narrowed it down to the city, you want to start trying to see what kind of job opportunities are there in this place, because there's no point in picking up and moving somewhere only to later discover that your job opportunities are next to zero. I say that because that's what I did. And once I moved here, I felt that my job opportunities were next to zero. So I want to save you from making that mistake. Now, in terms of the job search side of things, I have actually not done a lot of job searching, so I wouldn't consider myself by any means an expert in how this works, because I gave up pretty easily. And part of the reason that I was able to do that was I did have some funding, so I wasn't, in my case, I didn't have to work in order to fund myself in Finland. It was just kind of a nice to do. So I just decided it wasn't worth the hassle. But here's kind of what I've learned about since I've been here. From my perspective, I was primarily relying on LinkedIn. And that's because I come from a professional services type background, and I felt that that would be the best place to find those types of jobs. But obviously that might not be the right place for other people, but you know, that's where I started. From my LinkedIn applications, I'm going to guess, let's say over 3 years, maybe I've applied for maybe 100 jobs. But maybe not even that many. It's hard to say because I never really keep track of it. So maybe as few as 50, maybe as many as 100. And from that process, I've actually never had an interview. I've never had a call just to check in or anything, you know, nothing. Probably out of that 100, maybe 10 to 20 have responded to say, thank you for your application, but you know, we're going in a different direction. And then let's say the other 80, I never heard anything from. So just so you know. Another resource is, I think it's a recruitment agency / executive search firm called Pointer Potential. They specialize in matching international candidates with Finnish businesses. So I think that's something that anyone coming from abroad should definitely investigate. I've never actually submitted my resume or used their services at all, so I can't really speak to it, but you know, I think it's something you should be aware of. Facebook is actually something that I would investigate for the job search process. In several cities, if not all the major cities, you can find Facebook groups called English jobs in name of big city. So for example, English jobs in Turku. So I would look for those type of groups, and they will list jobs in those groups where you don't need to speak Finnish. And so that would be something useful to look at. And in terms of even before you arrive, you know, that's somewhere where you can have a look, just see what kind of jobs are coming up there, and just so you have an idea of what might be available to you. The Finnish Unemployment Office is called TE, and they have a website. The government is actually changing how job search is handled, or you know, the job center or unemployment office process is working. So maybe by the time you get here, this will change, because a lot of these services are actually moving to municipalities to manage. But as of right now, the TE have a website type portal where you can go and look for jobs. So this is something I would recommend that you have a look at and see if you find anything there, or just also to give yourself an idea of what kind of job openings there are in the place that you're looking to move. Another website to look at is Work in Finland. Have a look, you might find something there. Again, even if you don't, having a look at all these different resources will help you see the type of work that's available and see how what's on offer matches your skill set. Now, on to step 4, which is finding a community. I think it's really important that you have a sense of what kind of community and support you're going to have before you move. Even if you're moving to be with family, in my experience, Finnish people are not as close and outgoing as I'm used to coming from America, and I would say even less so than UK, which is even less kind of outgoing than America. So especially if you're coming to America, I think you might find it a bit closed and isolating here, even if you have a Finnish partner and their family is here. I find, and this maybe that's just my experience, I find that the Finnish people that I know are not as close to their family as I am with mine, and they don't really get together and do things as often as I'm used to. So even if you think you have that support, I think you also need to kind of consider that you'll also want some expat support, because even if you do have a good relationship or a close relationship with your Finnish family, it's always good to have someone who knows where you're coming from and can relate to things you're going through. So for this, I go back to Facebook. It's funny, I've never really been a big Facebook user, but you know, needs must. And so here I would look for Facebook groups that you might be able to join, so that one, you can see what kind of issues other people are having, and as you're preparing your move, you can ask questions, or if you have, if something is not clear through, let's say, the immigration process, you know, people in that, 99% of the people in that group, we've all gone through the process, so probably someone is going to have encountered the question that you have and can help you with how to move forward. Now, in terms of my Facebook groups, the ones I'm involved with are Americans in Finland, Brits in Finland, and expats and foreigners in Finland. I'm sure there are many more. I primarily use the Brits in Finland and Americans in Finland group. The expats, I don't really use that group at all, but I just have it there just in case there's something that I don't find out from the other two groups. I can always put a question in there. After moving to Finland, I think one way that expats kind of gather and meet up is through sports. So if you play football or basketball, or you know, especially if it's an American football type of sport, you might find a league in your area, which is a great place to meet other people. Where I live in my small city, I'm not aware of anything like that. In fact, I'm not aware. There are some, but you know, it's such a small city. There aren't that many foreigners that live here. So that's another reason why I definitely recommend moving to a larger city to begin with, just to kind of make some friendships and build some community. The last thing I would say is you can also check Reddit and join a subreddit. Obviously there's one on Finland, and I don't really use Reddit that often, but you know, that might be another place you might want to go and look for some questions and just get some advice and see how things work in Finland. On to cost of living. I recently did a video regarding my budget in Finland, and I recommended that someone coming to Finland or living in Finland in one of the big cities needs about $2,300 per month to live. Note that's dollars, not euro, so the actual figure in euro will be a little bit less than that. So with that in mind, I think most people would say do not move to Finland if you don't have a job. That might be difficult to do, to actually move here without a job, but it might also even be more difficult to move here with a job, because how do you get a job if you can't interview in person? So you might find that you decide to come without having a job. And so if you do that, I highly recommend that you have at least 6 months of living expenses with you when you turn up. And that's about $13,800 if I've done the math right. And that's so that you can kind of get settled, get someplace to live, buy groceries, and just like, you know, have your needs taken care of for a few months while you start navigating the daunting prospect of finding a job, because that is not going to be easy in Finland. Also, just to note, in addition to that, if you're planning to ship any furniture or anything, that should also be done. That should not come out of this $13,800 amount. That $13,800 is strictly for living expenses, and anything else to get you set up in Finland should already be paid for. Now, having just said that, I do not recommend that you ship anything at all. It's expensive, and in Finland, there is a big culture of secondhand stores, and you can get great things secondhand. And otherwise, you can also just go to IKEA. We have several IKEAs here, so you can furnish that way. So do not ship your things. It's not worth it. It's too expensive. The last topic I want to cover is planning a visit. Ideally, you would come and visit Finland before deciding to move. But if you're the adventurous type, you could just wing it. The person I was messaging about Finland said that she didn't think she was ready for the Finnish winter, and so she was planning to come in the summer. No, that is a bad idea. I think if you're going to come to visit Finland to see if you like it or not, you must come in the winter. The winter is much longer, probably twice as long as the summer season. So it doesn't make sense to come and visit Finland when you see the best 3 months that there is, when you're going to have 6 months of winter and a few other rainy months on the shoulders. So I think you definitely, if you only come one time, you need to come in the winter so you can see what it's going to be like most of the time you're living here. In fact, here I am, I'm in a hoodie. It is 21st of April, and we actually had snow yesterday and the day before. So, you need to really come and see what it's like. And to get the true picture of what winter is like, I would come in January or February, just to make sure by that time there should be snow on the ground, and it should be the coldest months of the year, in my opinion. I'm not saying you shouldn't come in summer. Ideally, you would make one summer trip and you would make one winter trip. I'd probably do the winter trip first, because if you hate it, you can save yourself the money of a summer trip. In terms of summer, it'll be really nice. I love summer, so I think you'll love it. But, I think if you're only going to do one, you should do it in winter so you see the worst. But ideally, do both, so in case you're slightly discouraged by winter, you can have an idea of how glorious the summer could be. So those are my thoughts on moving to Finland. If I was going to do it again, I would go through this process myself and see what I thought about it before jumping in. In my case, I didn't have that opportunity. I just came on a whim, so to speak, but I don't regret making the move, and I think you won't either. But you've got to have the right attitude about moving somewhere different and adapting to new culture, new people, new way of living. So if you're up for an adventure, I recommend it, but go through these steps first just to make sure you don't make a mistake. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.